This is the first episode of our podcast talking about different league subjects and whatnot. And today I have two very special guests with me. Um, I'd like to get an introduction out for both of them. So I think I'd like to start with Rudy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are as a player?
Yeah, I'm Rudy, also known as like Rudolph in game. I'm a master level top laner and jungler. I played jungle for like a few seasons. Ended up getting to I peaked around 100 LP. Got super sick of the role swapped to top lane, and like 500 games I hit 200 LP masters. I've won the Mountain West Conference on our collegiate team on Colorado State, and won a lot of tournaments with the boys too, just traveling around. We went to South Dakota one time. There's been some, Colorado tournaments we've done pretty well in, and I feel like I pretty good at League of Legends. So yeah, that's me.
Great. Well, my next guest is Aiden. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
My name's Aiden. In game, you'll see me as Keetchie, and I'm an ADC main. I peaked at about 500 LP Grandmaster, finished the season Grandmaster this year. I've been playing since like season 4 on and off, and then started playing seriously in about season 8. And along with Rudy, I won the Mountain West Championship as his teammate last year, and we've won a variety of small tournaments throughout the last year or so. But I'm really focusing on next year going even farther into the collegiate scene and hopefully like pushing for like top eight in nationals and stuff like that. But uh, for now, here we are.
Well, great. My name's Caleb. I'll be your host for the podcast for today, and today's subject will be climbing the solo queue ladder and just in general questions about solo queue and whatnot. You two are both very, very highly ranked players, and I believe have a lot of knowledge about kind of how all this stuff works. So I'm really happy to be talking to you guys here today about different questions I've got prepared and whatnot. So without further ado, let's get into it, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
one of my first questions that I'd like to ask you guys is what do you guys think the best way is to improve in a solo queue environment? Like, if you had to, like, really sit down and try and get better as a player, not necessarily climb in rank, what would you do to try and do that? And why don't you go first?
Uh, I think one of the most important things to get better. Well, there's like a few steps to it, but the first thing is recognizing that you have made mistakes in the game. It's remarkably easy to understand what everything else around you is, going wrong. Like, oh, my jungler messed up this gank and like gave him a kill, or my mid didn't do XYZ. Like, it's really easy to see that, but it's harder to see your own mistakes. So, like, step one is recognizing, I'm making mistakes in this game, and then to actually correct those. I think the easiest thing would be VOD reviewing, just because imagine like a pro game, like watching like the LCS or something, people all the time are commenting on how stupid that play looks or like what is the spot lane doing, like why did that happen, because it's really really easy to find mistakes when you're watching, but when you're playing the game you feel a lot of stuff that you can't feel while watching. You can't feel the pressure that the enemy support is putting on you based on their positioning in lane. You can feel that while playing, you really can't see it all the time. And by VOD reviewing you can help see stuff in a more objective manner without your feelings mid game, and you can recognize like, oh, why am I backing off this wave? Like, why am I giving up this pressure that I don't have to? Why am I dying on this random rotation? And when you watch it back a little bit later with that third party objective sense, it's way easier to find your mistakes, and then you can implement steps to actually correct them.
Rudy, do you VOD review?
Probably not as much as I should of my own games, but I watch pro VODs all the time, and to kind of touch on like what Aiden was saying. I think playing games is important to like mechanically establish yourself as a player. Like you develop that muscle memory for like the combos of the champion you're playing and whatnot. But like the true growth isn't going to come from playing 20 games a day. It's going to be when you go on YouTube and you learn from people who are better than you. Like LS, that's like a name that's thrown around a lot. I watched him like in 2015. Literally the first season I played League, I stumbled across him. I literally became an Annie main and just focused less about like mechanics and more about the game core fundamentals because of him. And I think that just kind of taking a step back and looking at it through the lens of like better players than you and listen to what they have to say and just like looking at their content. There's so much more out there now in 2021 than there was like even in 2015 that you can probably find all the pieces of the puzzles, like reach diamond in like your first year of playing, even if you really, really dedicated yourself. It's not like easy. And I don't honestly think that that's like realistic. I think it's going to take most people a few years to get to that level, but it's totally achievable if you really dedicate yourself, I think. And the number one way to do that, I think, is as much as like playing the game, also like studying and learning from those who are already good at the game.
So if you guys are talking about all this like VOD review and learning and kind of studying up, uh, why do you guys think some people just get like stuck in lower elos? Like why are there some people who have been gold for like years and years and years on end? Like what do you think the biggest issue is that most people face?
Well, I think there's a few different reasons for it. To speak to the VOD review example, I should have, I guess, specified that VOD reviewing sometimes is not useful if you don't know what you're looking for, because I think someone could VOD review, a high elo bot lane, let's say like master bot lane. They could look at 100 games but not take away anything from it, because they might just see, oh, master supports are way better. Like his support landed all these hooks and set up kills for him. If my silver supports did that, then I'd be in gold by now. But that's just like a bad way to look at it, because why is the master tier support able to get those hooks? Is the ADC manipulating the wave that puts them in that position? Like there's higher level stuff going on that you might not even be aware to look for in a VOD review. And I think that's one of the ways that people get stuck in lower ranks, is they start looking only at the outcomes of things. Is they're saying, my team lost this dragon, but they don't maybe necessarily know the correct reason why. They might identify some stuff like, oh, we died bot, and so they got dragon, and that's bad. Sure, but like what led to you dying bot? Like what are the bigger picture things that we're missing here? And sometimes people don't know what they don't know, and so they start to plateau. Although I will say, for an elo like silver or gold, I think just raw mechanical skill will get you to at the very least platinum, probably diamond. So people that are stuck in those elos, I personally believe either don't have the innate skill or haven't put in the time to be mechanically good at like 2 to 3 characters, or maybe even one character, honestly.
Hmm. So like let's say I'm like a silver 3 player and I've been in around the silver rank forever. Like Rudy, what would you tell me if I was like, I really want to hit gold this season? What do you think I should focus on?
Yeah, I mean, like Aiden was touching on, there's just like severe fundamental like mistakes that players are making like at this rank. And fortunately, the lower elo that you are, like the easier it is to like get you up because there's more like room to improve. So the first thing that I would do is shrink your champion pool. If you're not only playing like one, I think 3 champions max is like what really is like obtainable to like to get to a high level. I think more than 3 champions is too much. The less the better, honestly. But being a one trick, your champ does get banned occasionally. I can understand. Also, some people get bored. So I think 3 champions is kind of like the sweet spot. Just only play 3 champions. I'd recommend that they're kind of simple champions, but also have carry potential. I wouldn't play support. If you're on support, I'd role swap. Um, it's just that role. I think that it just teaches bad fundamentals. You kind of learn the game through a, I don't want to say like a bad lens or something, but it just builds bad habits, I think. Play simple champions. And I think that the number one thing I see in low elo that like I had when I was low elo was like a poor mindset. It's I think one thing people need to incorporate is the 20-20-60 rule. And to me, that's like 20% of your games, all 4 of your teammates are just going to feed, and you're going to lose. Even if you were, Faker, you're probably not going to win the game. I mean, if you're Silver, I think Faker could win any game in Silver, or like myself or Aiden for that. Like anyone in high elo can carry like a Silver game 99% of the time. But, if you're around players of similar level with you, 20% of the time you're just going to lose the game because they're so bad. Conversely, 20% of the time you're just going to win the game because your other 4 teammates are going to carry. And that other 60% is kind of like a gray area where it actually is going to boil down to your own individual performance as to whether you're going to win or not. So if you play good every single game, 60% of games you're probably just going to carry. 20% of games you're going to get carried. And like that's why like the best players in the world, like the ones who do play perfect 100% of the games, only can kind of maintain. I say only, but that 80 to 70% win rate because like they're doing everything right, but 20% of the games is just unwinnable. So if you just accept that like 20% of the games are unwinnable, and that you're also like not, you're a silver player, you're not the best player in the world, you're also probably not going to carry all 60% of that game where it's up to you. 40% of your games you're just gonna lose, and like that's not your fault. But if you're winning 6 out of 10 games, you will climb over time. So I think just kind of implementing that like maybe one step forward or one step back, 2 steps forward, like kind of mindset, and understanding that not every game's winnable, um, is like honestly the biggest thing you can do to improve your mentality and climb. Honestly,
How heavily do you guys think emotions impact performance in your games?
Huge, huge. I think
I'd
it's the biggest thing.
I'd say it's literally the number one thing. It's probably my biggest problem. I think I
Yeah.
easily could have hit
Same.
like GM this season if I emotions weren't part of the picture. But one thing I've been looking into, it's because I feel like Aiden, I don't know if you can attest this. There's not a ton of room for us to like grow in the game anymore. It's not like we're gonna learn like a new mechanic or something, or like how to manipulate the wave better, or our mechanics are gonna get significantly better. So like I'm looking for like resources outside of the game, and it's kind of like idea like a school of thought developed like by Marcus Aurelius. It's like Stoicism. He's like a philosopher, kind of like Aristotle, Socrates, for those who don't know. But it's basically, let me pull up the definition itself. But it's, let me pull it up just so I don't get it wrong. It's
I
the
believe
endurance.
Stoicism is
The definition is like the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings or complaint. And it's basically like you're just not gonna like tilt. You're not gonna cry. You're not gonna rage about it. And it's kind of like the idea of like, let's just say something super random happens, like you're playing mid lane and you're versus a Cassidy and he like roams and gets like the most free stupid kill in the world. Like if he's like, even like some challenger players can't carry with one kill. Like if he's a bad player, if he's platinum, gold, diamond, master, even grandmaster players, I don't think are good enough to carry off one kill. Like it's not going to ruin the game. You don't need to freak out of it. Like just accept that he's probably going to throw. And conversely, if you're a good player and you get set behind like maybe one kill death, it's not the end of the world. You don't need to freak out and spam FF. It's like an idea I'm really looking forward to implement last season. Like this is something I've recently came across because I've had like mentals. I think been my biggest barrier. I'm a little infamous in some areas. I get a little tilted sometimes. Might be playing a little bit of Pike when I shouldn't be, but yeah, I think just the whole like idea of stoicism and just the theory of like, the only thing you really can control in the game is your own gameplay. If you just like accept that, like I've been playing League for like 8 years and I still have a hard time accepting it. I think I'm like getting a lot better, but if you really can internalize that and apply that to your games, you're just gonna be mental warrior and win every game.
Would you say it's kind of like an ideology of you can control what you can control and you can't control what you can't, so focus on what you can? Something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I want to briefly expand on what Rudy said as well, because what he said is exactly great across the board. But to give like some of my own experience on it, turning off chat, I literally went up 400 LP. Like I was like stuck at like the bottom of Master for most of like the early season, and I definitely would like type shit, not like flaming. I don't flame on my main account, even though I'm kind of notorious for typing stupid shit on my other accounts. On my main, I don't type flame because I recognize that's not going to help the game. But I would just type stupid shit that like doesn't need to be included, and it's just distracting my teammates and it's distracting me from the game. And turning off chat, I stopped getting tilted by what my team said. I stopped tilting myself from what I said, and within like a month, I think I moved up to like 300 LP, and then I finished at like 500. Like turning off chat, legitimately, I think is necessary to climb. It prevents so much like needless emotional like struggle that you go through.
Honestly,
I
yeah.
completely agree. I turned off chat at the like I got to like around 200 LP, then I just mental kaboomed, went down to like D2, stopped playing the game for a little bit. I came back, my mental was intact. I turned off chat instantly. I was dropping like 20 kill games and like Masters. Instantly got back up to Masters, and then like there wasn't much time left in the season, so I just like kind of took a break and finished low Masters. But yeah, turning chat off it's so helpful. Probably like actually the number one, like it's not really like a cheat code like in anything in life. Like great change doesn't happen overnight. You don't like, you get incrementally better, but turning off chat makes you significantly better. It is the one cheat code that I would recommend. Yeah, it's the one exception to that rule in League of Legends.
Also, the last thing I have about the like game impact of like my lane got one kill, is the game over? I encourage people to watch back VODs and look at the point in the game which they thought it was doomed. We started doing this in comp, where I said, like, I'm a good player. I played enough games where I can recognize patterns for when the game feels over and like we can't recover or can't contest stuff. And I'd say at this point in the game, I remember feeling like this game was over. We'd look at the VOD, we're like 1,500 gold behind. Like that doesn't matter. Like sometimes you have more than that gold in your pocket while you're fighting because you didn't base properly, right? And that was like a good thing for me to recognize and realize this game is significantly closer than you realize until it explodes at like a 5-man soul baron fight. Up until that, a lot of games are like weirdly close, even if you don't recognize it. That there's so many comeback mechanics in the game that I'd say an overwhelming amount of the time, if you just stay cool and farm up, you'll probably win.
Yeah. I mean, you could be down like what, like 6 kills, but be up like maybe like net 50 farm, and you're probably down like less than 1,000 gold, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're farming well and like maybe you've gotten some plates even, it's an alarming amount of gold that you can like make up for kills and whatnot, or just map pressure. I'd rather be down 2 kills and up mid tower most games.
That's fair.
I would agree. I think yeah, like the importance of like farm is so undervalued, especially in like lower elos. If you are like a silver player, look at your OPGG, check, or if you don't know what OPGG is, it's like probably the number one most important tool to like analyze your games and like better players' games. But it'll tell you your CS per minute, which is how many creeps you kill a minute. And if it's like not 7, if honestly if it's not 8, literally just stop thinking about everything and just focus on farm within the game, and you will have more gold than your silver, gold, platinum opponents. If you're hitting 8 CS per minute, you will have more gold than anyone in platinum and below. Like in the game, probably. It's just that absurd. It's free wins. Farm is the most OP undervalued thing that I think low elo players like don't get completely, and it's just yeah.
So back when I played Valorant competitively, before every session, I would go and sit down to game. I'd either go into aim labs or I'd do custom games or whatever, and I would actually practice fundamentals of the game. Would you guys recommend similar stuff like that to people who want to improve in fundamental aspects of the game? Like, let's say you're a silver or gold player, you really want to get better at farming. Would you recommend like sitting in a custom tool for 10 minutes before like a long session and just practicing CSing? Do you guys think that'd be something helpful, or is it kind of a waste of time?
No, you should. If you're, I'll speak to ADC specifically, but I think absolutely every lane, especially mid on mages, should do this. Go into a custom game. Don't even, you can buy like a Doran's if you want, but I remember I did it without any items and just last hit minions. Like, don't auto a minion at all unless it is the killing blow, and try not to use any abilities. And do that until you can get at least 90 CS at 10 minutes. Once you can do that, then queue up for a game and like play. But until you can do that, you are fundamentally missing, a core aspect of the game that you need to work on. And I would just sit in a custom game for literally an hour until like you perfect it. You could probably run it 10 times in an hour, or well, and it's not if you're going to like 10 minutes or whatever, but you could run it like 5 or 6 times in an hour. Try to hit that number, and then once you get that, maybe like your warm up on the day, right? Like go into custom, get the most CS you can, then queue up. That's huge if you're lower ranked and struggling to improve. It like gets you in the mindset like ready to focus on a certain objective in the game.
Did you do that? Like Aiden, is this something you did in the past?
That's something I did when I was like lower ranked in the
And
game.
would you do it like before you play every game, or did you do it like once you got that 90 CS per minute, you just kind of never did it again? Or you had like the fundamentals?
I would do it on like every like new champ. So I'm like, oh, I can do it on Sivir. Now I'm gonna try it on Caitlyn. Just get like used to their auto attack. But nowadays, the only thing I do before a game is I make sure my hands are warm. Like if I just woke up, like it's like winter here, it's like super cold, right? Like I'll like literally like go into practice for 5 minutes to warm up my hands, and then I'm gonna go. I don't need to practice stuff like that anymore. It gets ingrained into your head too much.
Yeah, that's interesting because Caleb, like you said, this is like very common for Valorant, but like League, like the fundamentals and stuff are far less mechanical and more or less like kind of just knowledge based. So I feel like kind of like these warm up like aim labs sort of stuff, like they don't exist for League because they really don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because like aside from CSing and maybe like hopping in at practice to and practicing your combos, it's really just kind of come down to like your decisions you make within the game based off what the other champions are doing rather than muscle memory, like fundamental mechanics like that. And what I would say is like because like I see like in low, like even like a jungler, let's just say like his mid laner died, there's a wave crashing and he's on raptors, he'll do raptors and miss the wave and then maybe go get 3 CS. It's like the decisions like that are like the things that I think are really gonna like catapult you and stuff. Is recognizing like when to, do X instead of Y, and you can like find the answers to those questions like online from there's tons of resources of league coaches, high elo VODs online that can like teach you how to properly handle those situations.
I completely agree, but also on the same note, I like personally, I noticed that like my first game of the day is always significantly worse than every other game I play after. Like, do you guys feel that way too? Do you guys think maybe like a warm up game on like an alt account or like an even like a normal would be something beneficial to people who are really trying to min max their solo queue climb this season?
Mm, it can be. Like if you notice it for yourself, then go for it. Like before our competitive games, we try to all play an ARAM together so that we have like, something that like we're warming up with together rather than nothing. But it's probably person to person basis realistically. Something to recognize about yourself. Because I know some people have, maybe 5 hours a week to play. And so like don't burn 20% of your time like not playing the game, like that's not an attractive thing to do. So it's probably person to person, but I can totally see that being useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, your mechanics are kind of like slow. Like when Aiden said, your hands are cold or something. If you can just like go into I don't think you need to play a whole game. Just practice tool, like the champ you're thinking about gonna play. Like do your combo stuff like that, and you should be good to go. But yeah, some people maybe the whole game would be beneficial if you have the time. I think it would help, but
Yeah,
it's not
but
not a requirement by any means. I don't do it.
Yeah. I will say playing a norm or like a lower elo game before like I'm trying to climb typically does me more harm than good, I've noticed. The more I play and like it happens every break, like every like summer or winter break. I start playing in a lot more low elo games, like doing flex with my friends or stuff, where the game quality's lower. And once I hop back into my main rank, it's a different world, and I like always like kind of kick myself for like not staying in practice with it. So I think there actually can be some harm and like playing lower quality games before ranked, but if you're just trying to warm up, it is what it is.
I think that's like such a you and me thing, though, Aiden. I think 99% of players aren't gonna have that problem.
Okay, yeah, you're right. If you're trying to climb out of silver gold, then you're right. Normal games are probably gonna be silver and gold. So yeah, you're right. You're right. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're totally right. You're totally right.
I think my next couple of guided questions are going to be more kind of targeted towards people in not necessarily high elo, but people who are striving to reach the higher ends of gameplay. People who are either already in like high plat, low diamond, and they want to reach for masters, or they want to reach for challenger, or they want to go pro at some point. People who really have aspirations to do really well, and they want to put a lot of time into the game, and they already kind of have like a decent fundamental understanding. So, one thing I wanted to ask you guys is with the skill level that you're at now, do you think you guys can consistently hit Masters Plus? Because Masters Plus is top 0.1% of all players.
Yes.
I hit it 4 times in 1 week this season, 4 different accounts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I could too. The skill level between a gold player and like a diamond one player is probably the same gap as a master grandmaster player. Probably maybe even smaller, or like the gap between the masters and the like grandmaster challenger player is like bigger. And
Yeah.
that's like something you've probably heard before, and like you're probably like, how can that be possible? But you have to think about it, like it going from gold to diamond. Like your mechanics are gonna get maybe like 20% better. You're gonna learn how to last hit. You're not gonna like actually revolutionize like how you're playing. You're just gonna like steadily like improve. Do like that. You'll hit 10% more skill shots. You'll be in the right place at the right time. But that master to like challenger level, like when I was playing jungle, it really dissuaded me because like being like a low master jungler compared to a challenger jungler, oh my god, they'll just smoke you. It is like ridiculous. Like they literally like they'll look at like the wave state, they'll see like, oh, it's slow pushing into the enemy top. So I'll skip my Raptors instead of doing Raptors red, and then I'll go gank top. And then also looking at mid lane, it's maybe in 3 waves will bounce and start like they'll do all this like crazy 40 chess in their head. And like that's not the type of gap you see between like a gold and a diamond player, but it like is very like common like in like a real thing. And it's like what makes challenger players challenger as opposed to GM or masters.
The best way that I've described what it feels like to go into like a challenger player, and I've heard people like share this sentiment before, is when you're against someone that is extremely good at the game, it never feels like they're out of the game. Never. Like you dive them 3 times bot, they're 0-3, like as Jinx, and you're like, okay, I gotta be careful because if I like get caught off guard, they're a few minutes from being back in this game. And that's how I felt when I play against like some pros. I remember Rudy and I played against Double Lift. We were duo queuing a while back, and we killed them like 3 or 4 times, and it didn't change the state of the lane at all. I was still being pressured out of my mind, and I had never, ever, ever experienced that in a bot laner. And I was like, oh my god, this Double Lift guy is pretty good, huh? Like I've never felt so pressured out of my mind, and that is the biggest difference for me when I see like Grandmaster Challenger versus even like Diamond 1 or 2. A Diamond 1 player can get a kill, and it literally doesn't change the game. Like, they don't do anything with it. But a Challenger player will run you over with like the smallest lead that they can find. It's obscene, like how big the gap is.
Yeah, I'll attest to that too. I was laning its literal rank 1 general sniper. I think I got a gank, killed them. I think I even like solo killed them, and he just like started winning the side lane. But like, it doesn't matter what you do. They always like recognize like your score really means nothing. What actually matters is like the amount of gold you have and the stats on your champion. And like he'll like understand, oh, like I might be down here, but like I can still kill this guy. And like I think he was like 0-3, 0-4 or something, and he just like ended up killing me as Fiora versus Akali in the side lane. I was the Fiora. I feel like like there's like room for the Akali to play, but Fiora's like the queen of side lane. I don't think she should lose to many champions. And that guy just he humbled me. He humbled me for sure. And yeah, it's just really amazing. Like these players, they do literally every single thing, not perfectly, but they push every champion to their max limits. They'll miss virtually 0 CS. They'll make maybe 1 or 2 mistakes throughout the early game, but they have the game pretty well figured out.
One thing I wanted to mention to kind of add on to how you guys were talking about the difference in like, like a D2 player versus a Masters versus a GM player and how much more drastic of a change like 2 divisions really is at that level. Only 2.6% of all players are Diamond or above, and only 0.09% of them are Masters Plus, meaning that you're already towards like the end of like the bell curve when it comes to ranking. So when you do try and like, I guess, move up in ranks and divisions, you're playing against not only a very small and, kind of controlled pool of people who are all very good, but the differences in skill and play have to be very defined in order to really make a difference in like your LP at that point.
Yeah, one of the biggest differences is consistency. Because, if I queue up on my main account, there's not enough people in the world that are within 100 LP of me for us to like find a game, right? So I'll be 500 LP, I'll have like a 700 LP support, 350 LP mid, like it's all across the board, right? Within like 400-ish LP. And very rarely is it that the highest LP person is smurfing the game. That's just not really how it works at that rank, but the higher LP person, on average, if I played 10 games with them, is going to like perform even or above. And that's what separates you at those high ranks, in my opinion. Like, there is a skill gap between like GM and Challenger, but part of that skill gap is just consistency. Like you have to play well not every game, but like majority of your games you need to at least not ruin the game. You have to lose gracefully at the very, very least.
What do you guys think is like your how do you guys focus on playing consistently? Because that's an issue I currently have in like my own gameplay. Is some days I'm just not paying attention at all, and some days I'm really honed in and I'm playing well. How do you guys stay consistent, or do you?
I think honestly that's my biggest weakness. I am not the most consistent player. There's some days like I think I'm mechanically very good, but some days like I just lose like my brain. I feel like my brain's like my issue. Like I can easily like drop 20 kills in like Masters, but like other days like I can't do it. And it's that's kind of like what dissuaded me away from jungle, at least, because like the other roles are much more I think mechanic based rather than like jungle. Yeah, that's like it's hard. Like even at my skill level, I struggle with it. I was like ranked 1500. I'm ranked 1500, and I literally could not. I can't play consistently at times. Like it's hard, and that was my biggest weakness. Is like I'd say one thing, if you're like lower elo, if you find yourself like dropping like 20 kills one game and then like 0-20 the next game, it's like that feels really bad, but it's like a good sign because if you can drop those 20 kill games, like it shows that like you have potential, right? And if you can like figure out how to like replicate what you did, maybe you don't need to drop like 20 kills every game, but if like you can just go like 10 kills like consistently, you will climb. And the way by doing that is you just like look at the risk reward ratio of the plays you're going through, going for. It's like I literally know how to do it. I've like really put in like study like during this preseason. Honestly, only like the last couple days. Like I really started like thinking about it because it's like, man, like I need to get more consistent, and it's literally just all about risk versus reward. Like if you go for a play that has like a 10% chance of working, never go for it. I'd say only go for plays that have like a 60% chance or better to go for, and it's kind of just boils into the risk versus reward ratio. I think if you guys want to touch on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that concept before, risk versus reward, with the whole like if you have a higher chance of it failing, just don't do it. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, I think I'm sorry to cut you off, Aiden. I'll make the point brief,
No,
but
go ahead.
Dopa used to be like the god of solo queue, the king of solo queue. This guy would literally never flash forward for a kill. He'd always save his flash defensively. That guy only takes like 70-30 plays. Literally only. And this is like, I mean, his playstyle is becoming a little more outdated, I think. But he hit rank 1, I think, every single season from season like 3 to season like 11. Absurdly good player, and that guy literally took 0 risks. And I think he's like the number one example. If you just search Dope Review, Dope VOD on YouTube, you'll learn so much about consistency as a player.
And do you think that changes from role to role? Like, do you think AD carry plays like more safe and less risky than like your support or like a jungler should?
Um, Sometimes. I think I don't know if it's about risk or not, but I think ADC is allowed less room for error because the role is a stat check at the end of the day. Like there are very few ADCs, like especially early game without items, where they can like mechanically outplay you. Like don't get me wrong, there's crazy mechanics you can do as ADC, but like imagine Jinx versus Caitlyn. Outside of like hitting W on Jinx or like getting like a nice net on Caitlyn, there's not the same level of mechanics that you're gonna see on things like Irelia or Fiora, right? It's mechanically less intensive early because the role is balanced around a guaranteed hit, right? Like just your auto attack. And so what happens is top lane, you can be down, let's say 500 gold, but get a really nice parry or get a really nice Irelia stun that you can like combo off of. And bot lane, because there's less opportunities to do that, you're either depending on your support when you fall behind, or you're just going to lose an auto trade, right? And that's why bot lane it feels so volatile. Where if you get 2 kills bot, if you get a double kill, I'm getting 800 gold ish worth of stuff, and that's 20 25 ish AD worth of stats, a little bit more. If every auto is hitting me 25 harder, dude, what do you do? And ADCs have learned that, right? And so higher elo ADCs will take significantly less volatile trades, is what I found. Because they don't want to risk falling behind. Whether or not that counts as playing more or less risky, I don't know. There's some ADCs that are like psychopaths in lane that trade wildly and get away with it. Specifically, like Draven players are really, really, really good at that. Overall, though, my playstyle is mitigating all risk in the lane and just slowly beating them. That's like how I want to play, but it doesn't always work. Like my ideal lane is like no kills. That's my ideal lane. No kills. I just want to farm and like poke them on farm and then eventually get like a jungle dive. I don't ever want a 2v2 kill. It's not how I'm playing the lane. I don't want it. I want my team involved.
Yeah, that's very interesting you say that because like I feel like for me personally, like top lane, that like kind of like depends on like the matchup. I think like if I'm like playing Vladimir into like Shen, like sure, I don't really need any kills. Like if I'm just farming free scaling as Vladimir, I'm extremely happy. But if I'm like the Fiora versus like Riven matchup, I'm going for those kills. I'm gonna try to like it is risky, but if you like are better than the opponent, you will kill them and you'll ideally win. I think that back to kind of your point, Caleb, does that risk like change from role to role? I think it does. Like Aiden said, I think the AD carry, I think some play styles are different. Like Reckless, for example, that guy Like he might not be like the most like 1v9 player. He had kind of like a tougher split this year in the LEC with G2, but like he won't die and he will have like 10 CS a minute. He will not die. He's not gonna get caught out, and like he's gonna do like his playstyle, his job. Now there are like some like Draven players, like Aiden said, who will like maybe get like 3 deaths in the first like 3 minutes. Like they'll just go crazy. It is what it is. But if they get those 3 kills, they will just like 1v9 the game after. So like on a Draven, I think yeah, you have to take more, not more risk necessarily, but you play a more. It's kind of hard. You play a more risky play style. It's kind of like picking a different class, like in a game.
Yeah. How I describe it is that you have the burden of winning on some champs is how I describe it. Callista is the most notorious example. You have the burden of winning lane or you have lost. Some champs like Jinx, you don't have to win. You have to be even and you win. Obviously getting ahead matters, and like a really good ADC is going to punish you on Jinx early and get ahead, right? Like duh, that's how the game works. But there's no worse feeling than picking an early game ADC of all roles and then not winning early. That's a death sentence. That's why I don't pick champs like that. I love Jhin because I think he is one of the only ADCs that is consistently good at literally every single stage in the game.
So my question to you guys then is, low elo players, what type of style do you think they should play? Do you think they should be playing champs with the burden of winning, or do you think they should be playing champs who want to go even?
I think champs that want to go even, or like even hard late game scalers, because the players in low elo are not good enough to punish you early. Like if you just play passive in low elo, your laner's not gonna kill you. If you're playing that Kassadin, that Vladimir, or that Jinx, or that like even like Fiora top lane or Kayn jungle, like all these champs scale. They can lose early and still they hit like crazy power spikes. Like that Kassadin 16, that Jinx, I don't know necessarily exactly, but
Like
three
three
items,
item Jinx, yeah.
3 item Jinx. Evelyn getting old, stuff like that. Champs like that, when they just like kind of like flip that switch, you're not really gonna get punished beforehand, and I think it's just so much easier to utilize that win condition than like having to wave manipulate, punish properly on like auto, like when the enemy ADC goes for a last hit, you auto them to punish. Stuff like that's so much harder to do, and it's way easier just to, I think, sit back and relax.
What do you think, Aiden?
I agree with that completely. Scaling champs, not necessarily like late game champs. Like you don't have to go like Vayne Jinx spot lane, but stuff that scales well into mid late game, I think is the most optimal thing for lower elo, because everyone will die at some point in those games. It's just how it goes. Like when I've watched my lower elo friends play, sometimes people just like do random stuff and just die. Like they'll tower dive for no reason and just give a double kill. And whatever, that's why like you're lower ranked. Like you'll make mistakes, that's fine. But because it happens so consistently, if you can pick stuff that excels later on in the game, you're going to get accelerated at some point if you're playing intelligently, and you'll get ahead of like the curve of the game. If a Jinx gets ahead of the curve of the game, which means like she has more gold than everyone else, then you're just going to take over. You can't be stopped. I don't think there's any reason to pick an early game champ in lower ranks, because your team will not effectively close out the game. It doesn't matter. Like, you should not pick Elise in silver. Why are you counting on your lanes to carry you after you gank them 5 times in the first 5 minutes? Like, I don't think there's any reason to do that.
Now,
honestly, I think this statement holds up. Sorry, Caleb. I just want to kind of.
No, you're good.
One
Please
last
finish.
point. I think this like even holds up to Grandmaster, low master games.
Yeah.
Like the players are
agree.
literally even at that rank not good enough to like punish. So
Yep,
I
totally
mean, like
agree.
if you are like that Draven or that like Elise, like Aiden mentioned, you're more likely to have your teammates like play properly and carry you out. But just due to like the nature of solo queue, like people throw even at those levels, and I think that it's like realistically, like it's very very common you see comebacks when you're playing those like strong mid to late game champions, even in like our elos. So
Yeah.
Well, I was about to ask, do you guys think that topic applies to higher elo as well? And clearly you
Yeah.
do. And you share
It
the
does
same
change a little
sentiment?
bit, though. It does change a little bit, but I think it applies. Like,
My feeling every single solo queue game, once we get a lead, is all right. How are we gonna mess this up? Who's gonna die? Who's gonna ego trade? Like every single game, it's not even a thought of what play we're gonna make that's bad. It's who's gonna get an ego and do something they shouldn't do every single game, and it just happens. So yeah, it absolutely applies. But I will say, when you get like closer to challenger, like GM challenger games, dear God, some people run with an early lead like no other. Specifically, good support players. Good support players will take over the game to a ridiculous margin if they get a lead early. But everyone's bad, so you'll get random kills at some point. I think mid to late game champs are in the current meta the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. It gets like harder and easier to win off those like early game win game, like win cons, the higher you go, but it's still very common for them to be thrown.
Gotcha.
Like you see this even in LCS and pro play. Like League is just very volatile game, with big changes coming every 2 weeks. A lot of stuff gets shaken up. People don't know like exactly the perfect way to play. And yeah, there's a lot of room for error in the game. So, yeah.
How do you guys feel about one tricking for climbing in solo queue? Do you think it's like how about this? How do you guys feel about one tricking when it comes to climbing, and then how do you guys feel about one tricking when it comes to improving as a player? So let's start with the first one. How do you guys think it helps with climbing? Do you guys think it's like really
It's
good?
OP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
it's the
really
way.
good. It's the best way to climb.
But
Literally,
like,
I think
but why?
every single like player in the top 50. I mean, it's just because you learn every matchup, you learn what to do in every situation on that champion, and you just perfect it. Repetition is the way like you get better at things. You're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over, as opposed to playing one game of Thresh, one game of Varus, one game of Gnosis. Like you learn so many different like skills that are like really aren't applicable to these like random champions. Whereas if you only play one, you just get so good. I was a one trick at one point. Kind of am still. Aiden very much enjoys his Jhin. Like it's definitely what you should do if you want to go as high as you can. Only play. I think you can get away with 2 champions, given like they're simple. But one really is like the way to go if they're like a complex champion.
Do you guys feel like the players who one trick are like really good when like just in general at the game? Like, do you guys think like a high GM or Masters like one trick Annie player, for example, is still like on par with like a Masters GM player, even if they're not on Annie? Because I feel like a lot of those
No.
skills can translate over, but I don't know.
Well,
A lot of what
n-
happens with like competitive play, especially like collegiate and whatnot, is you don't want to just become a one trick because if it gets banned, then you just lose games.
Well, okay, I agree with what you're saying. No one hits Grandmaster on any character without having core fundamentals that are going to transfer to any champ, but they are not going to be the same rank. Like, no, there's just absolutely no shot, especially for unique champs. Like, there are some champs that kind of break the flow of the game. For jungle, like, Kayn is a really good example. For top, Tom Kench is kind of a good example. For bot lane, Jinx is kind of a good example. For support, Bard is the king example. They break the way that the game is played because they have like unique stuff about them. Like Kayn runs through walls, right? Bard has absurd roams you can get away with. So anyone that like one tricks one of those champs can get to a really high rank. Like and will be good at the game, right? Like a Grandmaster's Jinx one trick is really good. But put them on something like Ashe, they're not going to be that same rank, right? They're going to fall a few hundred LP, and that's fine. Like me off Jhin, I'm slightly below Grandmaster. Like I can hit Master in any ADC, no questions asked. But my Jhin Elo probably a few hundred LP higher than anything else I play. It's just the nature of it. It's how one tricking works.
Yeah, I mean, there's like crutches you rely on, like as a champion. Like I was a Kayn main for a while. If I go for a really greedy invade, doesn't work. I press E, I wall hack. Bye bye. If I'm on another champ, I'm gonna get caught out and die. And like when you're off like these champions that you build habits on, like I used to be like a Kayn Evelyn 2 trick. Like let's just say I was super used to Kayn. Like like you're not gonna get away with some invades you would as Kayn, some like gang paths you would as Kayn, some and when you're off that champ, you still rely on those things because it's not like an explicit thing you understand. Like in the back of your mind, you're like it's just stuff you do. It's like I might go for an invade like when I was one tricking Kayn that just on Viego that just wouldn't work, and like you're gonna make mistakes and stuff based on just like the habits you've kind of developed from one tricking the champion. Although I will say, I think the pros heavily outweigh the cons. Like sure, you might be worse off that one trick, you might be like a few hundred LP lower than like what you actually are off that one trick. Like you're still going to be a good player on that one trick. And there's like, I would rather be a challenger one trick than a masters or GM like multi-role player, multi-champion player for sure.
Agree.
So
Yeah.
No one hits Challenger being a one trick that isn't good at the game. Like that. Like that's just the nature of it. You might be worse off that champ, but like, dude, you're top 300. Like if everyone could do that, everyone would do it. It is what it is, you know.
Okay. And kind of a weird question, but when you're climbing, do you guys focus on like your LP and the amount of gains that you guys get, or do you guys focus on improving as players? Because I think it's a little obvious that you'd want to focus on improving as a player, but I'm curious if you guys do it. Like in the ranks that you guys are at, do you guys focus on improving as players, or do you guys focus on getting higher LP ranking and whatnot?
Both.
Both?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, fair.
it's kind of like hand in hand. Like,
Yeah.
do you improve on being like a better football player, like a lineman, like while also like improving on getting stronger? Like, yeah, I mean they go together. The better player you are, the more LP you're gonna get. But I think I get what you're asking. It's more like, do you care about winning in the moment, or do you actually care about like getting better? Like,
Yeah.
would you rather just pick flavor of the month and cheese a few LP, or would you like just actually like try to improve your core like mechanics or fundamentals? And I think a combination of both is like the thing. You're gonna pick what's strong and what's meta, but you're also like obviously gonna want to play it as good as possible. So
Yeah, I care a lot about my LP because that's like the most obvious indicator of your skill. Like, how many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, I'm this rank, but I play like this rank"? No, dude, shut up. You play like the rank you're at. That's why you're there. Like, no one wants to hear that, and so I don't want to be the guy that says, "Oh, I'm actually a little bit better than my LP," because I'm not. But now that I play comp and I play like collegiate and whatnot, I care significantly more about my individual performance as a player than I do my LP. I would rather perform well in collegiate and be GM than perform poorly in collegiate and be challenger. Personally, like I care about me as a competitive player that can do well in like the most true League of Legends scene. Right, comp is just more important to me than solo queue because comp is like the way the game should be played in my perspective.
Okay. Um, I think I'm gonna ask pretty much one last question. It's a little bit different from what we talked about. But I think it's a good way to kind of wrap up a little bit. That's what we've been discussing. Do you guys think Masters Plus is achievable by anyone? Or are some people just kind of like destined to be forever in lower elos no matter how hard they try? Like, I don't know. It's a question where I'm curious what you guys think, like almost philosophically on. Do you think it's possible for everyone to reach this standard?
No.
I agree. I also don't think it is.
Some people will never hit master. Most will never hit diamond. No matter what, doesn't matter. You can get coaching, won't change.
Yeah, I think it's honestly just kind of comes down to it's hard, but I think it's like a lot of just habits like in real life. Honestly, it's not even like applicable to the game. It's just like who you are as like a person. I think that there's like a baseline level of intelligence you need, a baseline level of like coordinate. I don't know, like mechanics are kind of like a natural thing, right? It's not like something you teach. Like you either just have it or you don't, and those people that don't just won't be able to achieve it. Same with like intelligence. You can like study all you want, but some people just never really wrap their head around a concept or something. And it applies to the league as well. Like some people just won't have what it takes. Like there's so many kids out there that want to like be in the NBA or like the NFL or the LCS even, and they'll like put in the hours. Like I think a mindset is like I'll work the hardest. Like I have this mindset for a while. I would play like 15 games a day or whatever or whatnot, and like that really isn't the deciding factor. Like how hard you work, like it's good to have a good work ethic, but it comes down to other things, in my opinion. And it's really hard to define those things. Like it's not really a measurable thing, but that's just like you said, philosophically what I believe.
There's a really funny video. I want to say it's of LS, but I could be wrong. Where he's coaching someone, and within about 5 seconds, he like freaks out and says, "Nope, nope, nope. You'll never be good. The way that you're clicking is just wrong. The way that you move your mouse is bad, and you will never, ever, ever be high elo." And it's like blew up because it's like a hilarious video. Like, dude, what? I moved my mouse. What's wrong with you? But LS was like he was right on his assessment. Like you can tell pretty fast if some people fundamentally do not have the inherent skill to like hit really high ranks. I think everyone can hit platinum at the very least. Maybe diamond if we're like really, really committed. But once you get to stuff like master, some of it's innate. Think about stuff like art or singing. I'm never ever going to be good at drawing. I'm never ever going to be good at singing. And I knew people back in middle school that never had a coach or like, formal training, and they were just amazing at it. Like they were so good at singing, they were so good at drawing stuff that I will never reach that ability. And the thing that I happen to be good at falls under League. I hit Diamond in my first 3 months of playing. Like it's something that just is good for me. I'm good at it. I was really, really good at chess when I was younger. I never had a coach, and I went to nationals multiple times and like would win stuff. It was something that clicked with me. Those types of puzzle, strategy, mechanical games were good for me. And other parts of life, I'm stupid at. I can't. I took 4 years of Spanish, and I wasn't able to learn almost anything. We excel at different areas. Mine happens to be League, or video games in general. And there's nothing wrong with people not naturally excelling at League. The thing is recognizing where you want to put your time. If I put all the time I did into League at drawing and I still couldn't draw better than like some 8-year-olds, which would be the case, maybe it's time for me to find something else. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, personally.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
took the words out of my mouth, said it
Exactly.
perfectly. So, yeah.
Now, it's actually funny because I did a little bit of research into this subject before going on to this podcast and talking with you guys. According to a couple studies, especially I'm referencing one done in January 2020. It'll be in the link in the description below. But it pretty much explains that elite players have more cognitive flexibility and control over interruption, and that they also tend to have a superior impulse control than like the average person. So,
Sure.
like, I do really think it's like maybe not like genetically whatever, because I do think you can work really hard and still get to these points. I mean, I'm not as good as Aiden or Rudy. I started and I hit silver, and then I went to gold, and then I went to plat, and now I'm in diamond, and I worked really hard at it, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to hit masters, you know and that's just something that it might just be because of the way I am, but who knows,
Yeah,
right?
nature versus nurture, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Like part of it maybe is genetic, and part of it maybe is the way you're raised,
Yeah,
part of it's
a little bit of both.
whatever. Yeah.
The one thing I will say though is don't give up if it's something you really want to do, because who knows? Maybe you can.
Can I disagree with that point?
Sure, you can. Go for it.
Recognize when to give up.
That's my take.
I think a healthy life skill is recognizing when to stop.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think if you love it and you enjoy it and it brings you happiness, keep doing it.
If you get happiness out of it, yes. But I have never seen someone that has played 8,000 games in a season and is stuck in a rank that's happy.
Like,
That's true.
If you play the game and you suck, if you're like hard stuck iron and you love playing, dude, you've succeeded, bro. I'd rather be happy in the game than be high rank and hate it. If you're enjoying the game, I don't care what rank you are, dude. If you want to improve, that's great, and like you should work on that. But if it's getting to the point where it's like destroying aspects of your life and it's like tearing you down, you got to stop. That happened to me. I remember when I was young, when I was I think I was 15, I might have been 16. Like this will sound like it's almost like a joke looking back at it, but I remember I got like hard stuck, like Diamond 4.
like I couldn't climb, and I got worse and worse and worse. And I actually vividly remember wanting to kill myself because I felt like I had lost like all value in my life. And like no, it's fine to laugh at it. I laugh at it looking
It's
back.
not- it's-
No,
it's
no,
not.
no. I look back at it and I'm like, dude, what was wrong with me? But like I valued myself in League so much. That was like everything I spent time doing, that when I couldn't get better, I felt like I had lost everything in my life. Because like you're 15, you're impressionable. Like
No,
nobody's
I
laughing
agree.
at that.
No,
It's
I
hilarious.
completely
That's-
agree. It is.
No, it's funny. It's legit insane. Like I remember feeling that way and looking back at it and thinking like, what is that, man? Like how did I reach that point? What is wrong with me? And it's because like you let it become too much of your life. And now I have a way healthier balance where like I'll be upset at myself if I fall in rank, but it's not like my world shatters. There's other things I excel at, That's what I think the dangerous part of it is, especially people that are younger. Is it can very easily become the only way that you value yourself. And that is scary to me because I remember going through that.
Yeah, I never got that bad. I remember I'd get like pretty depressed like when I would like go from Diamond 2 to Diamond 3 and stuff like that because I got stuck in mid Diamond as well. But and, I'd literally like be like mean to like people in my real life when I like deranked and stuff. I'd be just like, don't talk to me, or like I'd be in like a bad mood, and it would
Totally.
negatively affect me. But at the same time, like I didn't like give up. Like you said, you wanted to like end it all. I didn't get there. I was like, you know
Okay.
what? I'll go back to the
Yeah.
drawing board. But and like if it does get to that levels, yeah, maybe it's not the greatest thing. But yeah, that's interesting to hear for sure.
No, I actually really appreciated hearing it because
I did
I
too.
like, I mean, I've tried out for collegiate teams so many times at like Colorado State and whatnot, and I've been denied quite a few times. And you know, it's just kind of how life is. Sometimes you're good enough, and sometimes you're not. So there's other things in life other than League, but for now, I think that's kind of where I'd like to end our talk on today's episode of our podcast. Aiden and Rudy, thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys were wonderful guests.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It was a
Yeah.
good time.
And yeah, I'll have links in the description for things that I've referenced in this, as well as I'll have uh, Aiden and Rudy's Twitch, Twitter, whatever you could think of. I'll have those in the description, as well as probably underneath their names or something like that. Who knows? But thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to be doing this again sometime in the future. Thank you guys for joining me on the show.
See ya. Yeah, thanks guys.
Have a good one. All right, cool.
That was pretty good. I thought that was good.